I've got a QR code available, and then feel free to make a copy of this document, modify it, share it with your students and colleagues, as long as you practice proper attribution. And really, the I've done this activity in a couple of different ways, but the one that I'm most familiar with is doing this as 2 discussion board posts to try to connect some of the material that we might be studying to something kind of random and seemingly unconnected. So usually I have students do 2 discussion board posts. I have them use a website called 6 Degrees of Wikipedia, and I ask them to use it to connect 2 seemingly unconnected things. And then I have them do the same thing using the GenAI tool of their choice. And so, just as an example, I decided to do 6 Degrees of Wikipedia, and you can enter in your terms, in the boxes. So I had it do TV pickup and try to relate it to spirometry. And I was interested in this because I had heard that after the Bad Bunny halftime show, apparently the New York City Department of Environmental Protection said that right after the show ended, there was a spike in usage equivalent to over 750,000 toilets flushing across town. And so this kind of relates to just sudden surges in demand on any utility. And so TV pickup is actually when this happens due to a demand on the national electrical grid, usually because people are simultaneously watching the same TV program and they're making use of commercial breaks to go ahead and use the bathroom. In Britain, they wind up turning on the electric kettle. So they've got multiple electrical appliances running at the same time. And then this just causes this large synchronized surge in national electricity consumption. And so I asked it to go ahead and relate TV pickup to spirometry. And one of the pathways that it suggested was from TV pickup, you can relate it to carbon dioxide. And there, the carbon dioxide was actually related to TV pickup because the grid also has to coordinate mass switch offs of appliances, and Live Earth and Planet Aid had some events to try to have a massive switch off in order to conserve carbon dioxide. And the grid actually said, because this is a highly unpredictable demand for electricity, it actually might generate more carbon dioxide than it was meant to save. So naturally from there, the topic of carbon dioxide can lead to pulmonary gas pressures. And then from there, we go on to spirometry to measure lung function, right? So I thought that this was kind of an interesting story where you can relate TV pickup to spirometry. And I challenged ChatGPT to do the same thing. And pretty quickly, ChatGPT mistook TV, so television pickup, for tidal volume. And then it just kept on kind of fabricating from there. So I asked it a couple of different ways, I think. It still kept on telling me that, it wanted to keep on talking about tidal volume. And then it suggested that tidal volume, TV pickup was actually it was when the spirometer picks up or records tidal volume. So I essentially had to teach the AI. So having to explain exactly what TV pickup was, it seemed to get back on track a little bit, and it tried to create a bit of an analogy. So still not creating a connection with multiple pathways or multiple topics that might lead to kind of interesting factoids. And then the AI, well, I thought it had course corrected, but it generously offered to sketch a flow volume loop. And so I said, sure. And it generated this, which, if you can tell from the graph, is not really what a flow volume loop, what you would expect it to look like. And so with this activity, some of the outcomes that I get from this or expect are that students will gain an understanding of which tasks may not be well suited for Gen AI, and then also have the students discuss and speculate on the reasons why Gen AI fails or succeeds at specific tasks. So some of the things that we talk about are Gen AI seems to do okay with close connections. So in other words, the example that I had, which had 4 different topics in order to relate TV pickup to spirometry, was just too far of a connection. Some students managed to get pretty close connections of 2 to 3, so that was okay for AI to jump on. And then also some students kind of hypothesized that given some good prompt engineering, AI might be able to perform better. And then the other one, which I think is interesting, is the concept of data set availability. And so if AI doesn't have a large enough data set to pull from, it'll start trying to find other leads. So the one example that I have of that, I don't know if anybody's seen this video where um, the person in the foreground jumps, and then all of the possums play dead, and they do so in a playful way, almost like the way that dogs would. And so part of the reason why this kind of video exists, because this is not actually how possums play dead. Usually when they play dead, they just kind of faint or freeze up. So likely what happened was that Gen AI tried to make some connections and saw the play dead and thought, oh, well, that's actually a trick that dogs do. And so it incorporated that movement on top of the image of a possum. And then additional outcomes that I found from this was, I got to get insight into my students' interests, and also it wound up becoming a more comfortable way for the class to explore societal issues and interesting connections. So one of the one of the topics that one of my students suggested was let's relate electrocardiography to the drag race franchise. And that actually got to be an interesting way to think about how gender nonconformity is treated both in hospitals and medical settings, and then also in incarcerated settings. Another student looked at relating the glucose meter to a vlog. And so there she wrote, there have been recent efforts to integrate the functions of a glucose meter into users' smartphones to make it more accessible. But in the US, this functionality is limited to AT&T and Verizon. And then from there, it related it to YouTube, because Verizon actually had a past controversy about limiting data speeds for Netflix and YouTube, which of course is used for vlogs. So that got us to thinking a little bit about the role that companies play in terms of accessibility of data and of devices and access to medical care. And then another student related Stevie Wonder to a retractor. And that one started off with Stevie Wonder relating to veganism, because like later in his life, Stevie Wonder went through a spiritual journey and decided to become a vegan. Veganism led to John Harvey Kellogg, who is an interesting character. So not only is Kellogg associated with our cereal brands, but he's actually also an American physician and developed kind of a wellness center. So it was the Battle Creek Sanitarium that had some rigorous health practices, advocating for controlled diets, therapies such as artificial sunlight treatment. And then in addition to being a businessman and a we'll say a wellness influencer. He also was a physician and made contributions in obstetrics. So that was how he related to retractors. So believe that's the end of my slideshow. And what I was going to propose was if everybody could kind of take a little bit of time if they'd like to go ahead and play with 6 degrees of Wikipedia and just kind of see what kind of pathways they might generate, and then we could kind of discuss from there.